We are at the intersection. I'm Michael Popok, and welcome to, I guess we call it the solo podcast for Michael Popok, or as my wife likes to joke, it's for people who aren't getting enough of their Popok. They now have this show on the Midas Touch Network on Tuesday nights. All kidding aside, we appreciate everyone being here, helping us build this community together. And with your help, we've already reached the top of the charts on YouTube. Let's get into the important things today. I got two special guests on this very special intersection. One, in a little bit, I'm going to be bringing on Skye Perryman. You're not going to want to miss Skye. She's the founder of Democracy Forward, and through her, hundreds of other organizations are all united to defend this rule of law, this constitutional republic against the lawless Donald Trump. There's two things I want to talk to Skye about. One is kind of a summary of what she and her team of lawyers and other affiliated groups have been able to accomplish in just a year. You'll want to sit down for this one, and you'll be, I think, quite pleasantly surprised to hear the stats and the numbers. But there's also a new bombshell reporting with a filing in one of her cases involving your and my private Social Security information. Yes, Doge is back, where the government having to file yet another another correction of the record in a filing that, it looks like Doge was rummaging around our confidential files in violation of a federal court's order more than we thought. And I want to talk to Skye about that. Then I'm going to bring on Lisa Phillips. She is the leader of the one of the leaders of the Sex Abuse Victims and Survivors movement. She's an Epstein survivor and thriver, and she led the charge with a new filing that she made to implore a federal judge in New York to get the Department of Justice out of the process completely and have federal judge oversight to find and produce the millions of documents that the government, by its own admission, has related to the Epstein files, but has been slow walking and foot dragging for over 6 weeks. We're still stuck on 12,000 documents instead of the millions of documents they've identified. And it must come to an end. And when survivors lead, justice follows. You're going to want to hear my interview live with Lisa Phillips. And then I'm going to have to catch everybody up and catch myself up and what's going on in the world around us, the world that Donald Trump is hell-bent on destroying. We're going to talk about Greenland and Donald Trump's AI cartoon of him planting a flag in Greenland on his way into Davos for the World Economic Conference. He thought it was going to be his coronation at Davos, but the European leaders have another thing in mind as they all fight back, led by Macron from France, led by Mark Carney from Canada, and have basically told Donald Trump to stick it there it is, stick it where the sun doesn't shine, in terms of the Gaza, quote unquote, peace board dominated by people willing to pay billions of dollars to get on the board, even if they're dictators, even if they're conducting a war. And what not only is happening in Greenland, but also with Hamas and Israel. We bring it all together. I connect the dots on the intersection. I'm so pleased you're here. Sorry, we're just a tad late. I had a little personal issue, not emergency, little personal issue. I misplaced, not my car keys, misplaced my car. You know how you're working all day and you park in one lot and you think that's the lot your car is in, and you realize there's a twin doppelganger lot on the other side of the building. And for about a moment, you panic that somebody has maybe driven away with your car. See how life intrudes even on the intersection? I wanted to share that with you. I wanted to thank the Coral Gables police who came over and disabused me of my thought, and also a good friend of mine, Orlando, who was there for it. But we're here. We're back on the air. This is amazing. I want to start with Minnesota, because Minnesota is not just about Minnesota and Minnesotans, although they are brave and courageous in fighting back against the Trump administration. They are leading, and they are the blueprint that we must follow on how to oppose the Trump administration. Every time something goes wrong, every time one of his depraved policies leads to somebody being maimed or killed, I'm talking about Donald Trump, he blames the U.S. citizens. He blames Democratic officials. He opens up criminal investigations. And we have on the other side of that people like Attorney General Keith Ellison, angels that walk on planet Earth that are out there with the other attorneys general who are willing to put their own careers on the line to protect America. And what's going on in Minnesota with the threat of bringing in U.S. military boots on the ground in Minnesota. And we know what Keith Ellison's going to do because he told me in a recent interview. And we're going to bring all that together right here. Let's start with how this all kind of kicked off. We're following it on the Midas Touch Network with daily, hourly coverage of the protests in Minnesota. And in addition to that, we've got, of course, the death, the tragic murder of Renee Good, a mother, a wife who just was going down for peaceful protest, having dropped her 6-year-old off at a charter school, sat in a car, honking the horn, blowing a whistle, smiling and telling her future murderer in the next few minutes, bro, I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad at you at all. And then they executed her on the streets of Minnesota. And Donald Trump has the balls. I'm just going to call it. I don't blow smoke or sunshine anywhere in my life. I certainly don't do it on the intersection. He has the balls to wrap himself in her courage and say that it was a tragedy, a tragic death. Seems like a very good person. But what he really is worried about is that he wants her parents, the grieving parents of the murdered Renee Good at the hands of ICE goons of Donald Trump, to still love him as he took to a sort of a rambling, disjointed, just stream of consciousness press conference today, where the White House handlers, who are not doing a very good job of handling him, decided we better give him something to do. I know, let's give him a binder that says accomplishments on the side and let him go up to the, I'm like, is he like 9 years old? Is this a participation certificate? He's going to go up there and talk about his accomplishments because somebody handed him a binder and patted him on the head and said, go talk about it. Of course, then he takes the name of Renee Good in vain. Let's play a clip first before we get to Trump. His own propagandists, such as Carolyn Leavitt, rather than answer the question about how the Trump administration can take the position that ICE is doing everything right, when you have 40 people who died in custody and a couple of people blinded in California and a murdered Renee Good who got shot in the head 3 times, how can she rather than answer the question, she attacks the journalist. Let's play the clip.
Earlier, you were just defending ICE agents generally, and earlier on, Secretary Noem spoke to the media, and she said, among other things, that they are doing everything correctly. 32 people died in ICE custody last year. 170 U.S. citizens were detained by ICE, and Renee Good was shot in the head and killed by an ICE agent. How does that equate to them doing everything correctly?
Why was Renee Good unfortunately and tragically killed?
Are you asking me my opinion? Because an ICE agent acted recklessly and killed her unjustifiably.
Oh, okay. So you're a biased reporter with a left-wing opinion.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah, because you're a left-wing hack. You're not a reporter. You're posing in this room as a journalist, and it's so clear by the premise of your question. And you and the people in the media who have such biases but fake like you're a journalist, you shouldn't even be sitting in that seat. But you're pretending like you're a journalist, but you're a left-wing activist. And the question that you just raised and your answer proves your bias. You should be reporting on the facts. You should be reporting on the cases. Do you have the numbers of how many American citizens were killed at the hands of illegal aliens who ICE is trying to remove from this country? I bet you don't. I bet you didn't even read up on those stories. I bet you never even read about Laken Riley or Jocelyn Nungray or all of the innocent Americans who were killed at the hands of illegal aliens in this country. And the brave men and women of ICE are doing everything in their power to remove those heinous individuals and make our communities safer. And shame on people like you in the media who have a crooked view and have a biased view and pretend like you're a real honest journalist.
How many innocent Americans have been killed as a result of Donald Trump's policies? You keep talking about Laken Riley, which was a tragedy, but the vast majority, into the 95th percentile of migrants and people that come to this country for a better life, are not killing other people. They hold them up as examples in order to distract attention. She never answered the question. The reporter said, "What's inaccurate about how the question that I posed?" She then asked him for his own opinion. What's he supposed to say? "Oh, I'm just an automaton. I'm just AI. I don't have any opinions about anything that I write." And then, of course, to make it about the reporter instead of about answering the questions, that's what this press secretary does. She doesn't have the right to be in that room, nor in this administration, and should be ultimately removed. And even Donald Trump doesn't agree with, apparently she didn't get the memo with Carolyn Levitt, because he had to concede during his press conference that ICE makes mistakes. Let's play the clip.
They're going to make mistakes sometimes. ICE is going to be too rough with somebody, or, they're dealing with rough people. They're going to make a mistake. Sometimes it can happen. We feel terribly.
Right. I feel terribly that my policies are maiming and killing innocent Americans, while I continue to have a surge of the military and maybe invoking the Insurrection Act, as a result. But the thing that galled me, that chapped my backside, is he did it. This is the second time he's done it in 5 days, when he had that phony propaganda CBS News interview with Tony DeCopel. That guy that's trying to act like he's Edward R. Murrow or Walter Cronkite or Mike Wallace when he's asking softball questions. He actually has to wrap his question. And I saw the interview, the one that Donald Trump threatened to sue their ass off, that they didn't play the whole interview, like it's some sort of propaganda piece on his campaign website. And of course, DeCopel's like, "Of course we're going to play. Of course. Thank you, Mr. President. May I have another?" And then he actually says to him, "Well, many people who voted for you, there's so many people that voted for you, Mr. President." And then he had the balls, Trump, to say, "She's a very good person, and I understand her parents are Trump supporters." And then he goes further at the press conference today and says that the grieving parents of Renee Good, he hopes they still love him. Play the clip.
The tragedy, it's a tragedy. It's a horrible thing. Everybody would say, ICE would say the same thing. But when I learned her parents, and her father in particular, I hope he still is, but I don't know, was a tremendous Trump fan. He was all for Trump, loved Trump. And, it's terrible. I was told that by a lot of people. They said, "Oh, he loves you. He was I hope he still feels that way." I don't know. It's a hard situation. But her father was a tremendous, and parents were tremendous Trump fans.
What does that have to do with anything? Other than Renee Good was shot in the head 3 times by ICE, the Department of Justice under Donald Trump, his own number 2 and former criminal defense lawyer, Todd Blanche, has announced to the world that they're not going to be doing an investigation related to it. They're not going to be investigating whether Jonathan Ross, the ICE agent, committed a crime or civil liberties deprivation of Renee Good. And all he cares about, all he worries about, is whether they still love him. I don't even have to talk to Renee Good's parents. I assure you that the grieving parents of a slain and murdered Renee Good do not still love you. And that should not be your main concern when you're sitting at a press conference. See, when he goes off script and the handler's like, "Let's give him something to do. Give him the binder that says accomplishments, and let's see how that turns out." And then Minnesota, though, has an adult in the room, has a legitimate law enforcement officer, since the Department of Justice is completely captured and corrupted by Donald Trump. People like Attorney General Keith Ellison, who told me in an interview a couple of very interesting things. One, he said, the National Guard may be brought out in order to protect Minnesotans from its own federal government. Think about that. He's prepared to run into court if Donald Trump tries to do a phony invocation of the Insurrection Act to put military troops on the ground, just like we did in Portland, Oregon, just like we did in San Francisco. He's ready for that. Remember, and he's ready to prosecute, if the facts lead him there, a federal officer like Jonathan Ross, now that the government has abdicated responsibility and has already rushed to the conclusion and rushed to judgment to protect the ICE officer. Then it's up to Attorney General Ellison to step in. Here's a clip of Attorney General Ellison in my interview.
I mean, you got 3,000 plus ICE agents in a city where we only have 600 police officers who are, obviously there's not enough targets of their stated goal, undocumented people who have a history of crime and violence. There's not enough of those people for them to only do that. So what are they doing? They're stopping citizens. They're beating up people. They're demanding people to show their papers. They're saying your accent sounds different to me. Where are you from? Prove it. They're causing a tremendous drop in our economic activity and commercial activity, requiring massive mutual aid assistance programs. They are violating people's rights. They are tear gassing people. They are beating up people. They are profiling people.
And we are fortunate to have the 23 Democratic attorneys general who are doing their job, led by people like Keith Ellison, Rob Bonta, Chris Mays in Arizona. And I'm going to have the privilege of meeting with them when they get together in San Francisco in February for some exclusive briefing related to that. What's going on in Minnesota, just to round it out, we got Judge Menendez sitting over 2 cases. One involving the First Amendment protesters. She's already entered a preliminary injunction to protect First Amendment protesters. There we go, to make sure they're not shot in the face with pepper balls and other illegal acts, and having their Fourth Amendment rights against illegal search and seizure violated. That's going to be up on appeal to the Eighth Circuit. She's also presiding over the case that Keith Ellison's office, the state, has brought to stop the surge and to have a whole list of things, including harsh border patrol tactics being used in Minnesota against U.S. citizens, come to an end. She's going to be holding a hearing on that in the next week, and we'll report back on everything in Minnesota, as Donald Trump so far has not exercised the Insurrection Act. But I'm telling you, Keith is ready. Keith Ellison and his office are ready, and he's the person for the job. For those that don't remember, he's the one that prosecuted Derek Chauvin, the rogue bad apple cop that crushed the life out of George Floyd, yes, in Minnesota. And he's prepared to do it again, especially since the Department of Justice and FBI and Civil Rights Division have completely abdicated all responsibility to do anything in the name of Renee Good. And we're all Renee Good, right? At the end of the day. So we've got that one major group just to keep our thematics going here. And then I want to turn to Democracy Forward. Democracy Forward, who's regularly with us, briefing our audience over on the Legal AF YouTube channel, is one of the public interest groups devoted to stepping in and running into the burning building and doing the things that the Department of Justice and Civil Rights Divisions used to do. But when you have a rogue, out of control, lawless presidency, administration, and Department of Justice, you need groups like Democracy Forward and their squadron of litigators and trial lawyers, many of them coming out of the Department of Justice, to run into these courts to file their actions. And we've got some new breaking news and reporting related to your and my Social Security information and Doge, which is now back in the news. And I can't think of anybody better to brief our audience than the founder of Democracy Forward, Sky Perryman. Hi, Sky.
Good to see you. Hi.
You too.
What a year. What a year. We're at the 1 year.
We are at the 1 year. Thanks for doing this with me. We've done kind of videos in the past, but this is a live. We got a great audience with us tonight, and they're asking great questions. We were going to do, and we can do that in the second part if you'd like. We were going to talk about what your organizations like yours and those that are affiliated with you have been able to accomplish in a year, and it is quite jaw-dropping. The what you've had to do, but also what you've been able to successfully accomplish. But we got some breaking news about this new filing. Oh, oops, we made it. Oh, notice of correction to the record. Look how innocently titled this is. And we all saw it today and went, are you kidding me? So why don't you talk about the lawsuit that this is in, the judge that issued orders, and why this, what looks like a very innocent piece of paper, is actually quite devastating and violates the orders of a federal judge.
Yeah, it's a bombshell filing for sure. So this isn't a case that we brought early on last year when Doge, as you'll remember, was shock and awe around the federal agencies, including, by the way, the Social Security Administration, where Doge was seeking to misappropriate people's personal information. And so we filed a lawsuit, won a court order that the administration took up all the way to the Supreme Court. And I'll get there in a second, but won a court order that protected American Social Security data from Doge for a period of weeks, or so we thought, while this order was in place, while Elon Musk was coming around Washington. And truly, as everyone tuning in knows, some of the most sensitive information is at the Social Security Agency. People in this country pay their taxes. They engage with our Social Security offices and programs. And so you have a lot of personal information. Everybody that has a Social Security number in this country has deeply sensitive personal information at the Social Security Agency. So we took that very seriously and sued when Elon Musk was there. And we were worried about what the Doge bros were doing with all of our personal data. It turns out that we were worried for good reason. We secured a court order for a period of more than a month, for a period of weeks, while Doge was all around Washington. We thought, as pursuant to this order, that people's Social Security information was safe. Of course, the administration wanted to take the case up to the shadow docket. It did. The Supreme Court paused the order that we had achieved. We're back at the Fourth Circuit now. We're vigorously continuing to litigate and pursue this case to protect all of our data. And then, just out of the blue, a filing comes into the district court that already ruled against the administration. And it says notice of correction. And it's truly like an oopsie. What the administration is now revealing is that while our court order was in place, personal data was misappropriated, that it may have actually been that there was access that Doge had to portals that could have taken the data out of the federal government, or at least out of the agency. So this is a major court compliance issue. It's also a major factual issue, as the Fourth Circuit will start considering these things on appeal. It is deeply, deeply problematic, and it was a real bombshell to receive. They filed it late on a Friday night before a holiday weekend, and we will be pursuing this with next steps with the court. But thank you for drawing attention to it. There's been a range of stories today, from Politico to other outlets covering this.
Yeah, absolutely. And as soon as we saw it, we were like, oh, we have Sky on. We're gonna have to get a direct briefing here about what happened. And no, because Trump fell out of love for a period of time with Elon Musk, and he's no longer, quote unquote, in the cabinet meetings, doesn't mean that all of his nefarious, underhanded things don't live on and aren't being pursued still in dozens and dozens of cases, including yours. I mean,
this is just unbelievable. I mean, there was a clear court order, and you've seen our impact reports. You've seen, I mean, there and I say unbelievable. We know the administration has on, multiple occasions sought to skirt court orders. We have been having to fight that and force compliance on that. But this is really unbelievable. And of course, it's related to the election. And that's the piece of this is, it's not a mistake, I think, that all of a sudden the administration's filing this with the federal courts when there are a number of pending lawsuits around what the administration is doing with personal data, how they're seeking to undermine the election. All of this, is going to come out. One thing you and I talk about a lot, Michael, is that, courts are really important to force this type of transparency. Without these cases, none of this would be coming out. And so it's not a mistake that, of course, as there's more and more cases on election integrity, on what the administration is doing to try to undermine free and fair elections, all of a sudden the Department of Justice feels like it has to come clean in this case. And so you will definitely be seeing and hearing much more from our incredible team at Democracy Forward and our clients on this.
I mean, one of the things we know that Elon Musk wanted to do was this big data, create one, think about this, one massive database of all U.S. voter and taxpayer and resident citizen immigration information. Like that wouldn't be hacked by the Chinese overnight. Put it all in one place so that it could be searchable, and then use AI on it. Do you have any understanding now, or wonder, or belief, or facts about whether What happened to that project? Is that still going on?
Well, it
Who's
may be, right? Because we're seeing that. The other thing that's deeply concerning about the document that you just put up on the screen that they filed with the court is that they admit that they had a relationship with a quote unnamed political advocacy organization. I mean, what does that mean, and why are Americans' data sort of in the mix of this? So it's definitely dirty tricks and dirty business, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. And the other thing is the American people have a right to privacy to their data under the Privacy Act in this country, and there are even damages available if your information is misappropriated. And so that's going to have to be something to be pursued as well.
And I assume, I mean, you're not in the discovery or exchange of information phase in your case, right?
Well, we are, we've been up on appeal, but this we believe could potentially all change because now there's not a, now there's more to the story.
Right.
And one of the things courts are very good at is letting lawyers with their clients get to the bottom of the story. And we think that, of course, what the administration has done here with this just, incredibly belated bombshell filing is going to open the door up for that. So we'll have to come back and talk about more of that.
Yeah, one of my interpretations of seeing it was they know that there's going to be discovery one day and they're going to get caught with their hands in the cookie jar, and they wanted to get out in front of it.
Exactly, especially, and this is where, you were talking about the volumes of cases that the state AGs have filed, that organizations like Democracy Forward, the ACLU, other partners have filed. One of the reasons it's so important, obviously the administration is breaking a law a minute, so there's been so many of these cases. But the other thing is, there's an old phrase in the South, it's like, get all the liars in the same room together and see what happens. That's kind of what you do with these cases, right? Because there's a number of cases now where the administration's having to make signed representations, and they all start contradicting each other when you're not actually telling the truth. And so, we view this as not a coincidence that they're coming clean, so to speak, not fully clean. We're going to have to make them do that in this case, while there are other questions being asked in other cases. And it's a good example of why, when we get asked, well, what does this state AG case have to do with this other case, have to do with the case this other organization filed? It's very important that the American people have all of this representation. So like I said, we can get all the liars in the same room and see what's going on here. And so we're going to pursue this obviously very vigorously, given what it means for the American people's privacy and what it means for our election system.
Yeah. And Democracy Forward, led by you, is very good at getting all the liars into the room together. Let's talk about that should be your new slogan, new motto, new
I mean,
merch.
It's like between that and the circular firing squads. I mean, this is what you do,
Yeah, absolutely. Let's switch gears for a minute and talk about, a lot of organizations like yours are doing a look back about what you were able to accomplish, both to alert the American public about your success, because, sometimes we end up reporting, seems like doom and gloom all the time, although I'm very honest about not blowing smoke or sunshine when I do my reporting. Some things are very, very good. Some things I'm scratching we had an event today, not to drag you into something that it's not involving Democracy Forward, but we got two competing orders today related to Lindsay Halligan, right? We get the chief judge who says, a vacancy was created today because 120 days expired, and now we need to fill the role of U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District. And Judge Novak's going, no, the vacancy was created on November 24th when Judge Curry issued her order. So I came on the air with, look, I got to be frank here. These are not consistent. I don't understand these two orders, but we reported it. So for you, I think it's also, and you can tell our audience how as the head of the organization, when you look at the results, how does that help you move forward for 2026? It's not just about looking back in the rearview mirror, right? Although that's important. Tell our audience about, the 400 cases, the 2,700 FOIAs, all of that, all just this year against the Trump administration, along with your affiliates.
So overall, what we've seen this past year is more than 600 federal lawsuits, and even more if you consider lawsuits that are challenging immigration detentions. You can get, even higher than that, that have been filed against this executive branch, and that includes lawsuits by the state AGs. It includes lawsuits by us at Democracy Forward. It includes lawsuits by the vast expanse of public interest organizations that are really stepping into this moment. And you can learn more about that through our program at Democracy Forward called Democracy 2025. Where we're actually coordinating with more than 675 organizations that are all committed to coordinating and sharing resources and making sure we meet this moment together. Out of all of those cases, and I'll talk about our specific ones, but out of all of those cases, the administration's loss rate fluctuates between 70 and 80%. I mean, that is quite astonishing. And while we have been disappointed with some of the things that the Supreme Court has done, including the administration's insistence on taking so many of these cases up to the Supreme Court improperly on the shadow docket before there's even a record or full argument, less than 5% of all of these cases has gone to the Supreme Court. So that's just a bird's eye view of all of it. Is that the administration is losing far, far more than it is winning. It is losing before judges that President Trump appointed, judges that Republican presidents appointed, and judges that Democratic presidents appointed. And despite the White House's bluster about, well, we're just going to go up to the Supreme Court. I mean, first of all, the Supreme Court has not rubber stamped everything they want. They've had to pull back the National Guard from a number of states because the Supreme Court would not go with the administration on that. But even considering the fact that they've have had some success on the shadow docket at the Supreme Court, less than 5% of all these cases are going there. So that's kind of the overall bird's eye view. And then at Democracy Forward, we're very honored to have represented clients in so many of those cases, as well as in thousands of public records requests and other types of legal actions. And so as we look back over the course of the last year at sort of, where does all of this sift out? We see a few pretty large trends. I mean, one is the administration's governing by intimidation and retribution is being struck down by the courts. That typically, the way the administration has chosen to govern here is flatly contrary to the First Amendment. You cannot tell the nation's pediatricians, because we don't agree with your scientific approach around vaccines, we're going to cut off all your federal funding. You cannot say to the American Bar Association, by the way, these are real cases that we had to file and win, but you can't say to the American Bar Association, because we're offended that you're reminding lawyers they have an obligation to the Constitution, we're going to cut, a core federal grant program off for you. And so we're seeing the First Amendment win. And of course, that's one of the theories that the ACLU of Minnesota had in this recent one we saw over the weekend in Minnesota around the protesters. So as we move into the next year, those types of arguments and those types of cases, I think, continue to win. The administration continues to overreach so extremely on its immigration agenda, which I really refuse now to call an immigration agenda, because it's not about immigration. It's about a power grab that we have seen over the course of the last year. 9 justices of the U.S. Supreme Court, who do not agree usually on anything, have to affirm that all people in this country, whether you're a citizen or not, however you got here, everybody in this country gets due process, gets some type of day in court before they're removed from the country. And so you've seen those types of setbacks to an agenda, to the president's agenda. You've seen setbacks to his National Guard, with the Supreme Court refusing to allow them to block the court order from Illinois. And of course, we've secured a court order in Memphis, which is the first time the president sent the National Guard into a, quote, red state, where their state AG was not inclined to sue. Their city officials and elected officials in the state did, and we've blocked that. That's on appeal in the state court system. So I think you see some setbacks. Now, the problem is this is an administration that is so intent on harming people that we can't stop all of the harm to people and communities. We can't stop what ICE did to Renee. We can't stop it. What we can do is hold them accountable on the back end through damages actions, through monetary actions, through bringing cases against individual officers. And so you're going to see that type of accountability work, more of that type of accountability work over the next year. You're going to see the cases not slow down, but accelerate, because the president's extremism is going to accelerate. And I think what you're going to see is that the administration will struggle more on appeal and at the Supreme Court because their agenda is just so incredibly extreme. You will also see things like what we've been talking about tonight, where the administration sort of tried to play too cute with the court or tried to resist transparency. But after the course of a year, more and more things come out and the American people can see for themselves what's happening. So I also don't do sunshine and roses. I believe we are in the middle of a true crisis. We people and communities are hurting. No one's life has been made better. The rule of law is being undermined by the day, and our democracy is truly in such peril. We can't say how it is going to end. But what we've seen over the course of the last year is that people do have power, people do have strength, and that when you push this administration, we have seen them back down. We've seen them back down in a lot of our cases. Not appeal wins. They move on. They sort of get distracted and move on. And it is going to take a full court press. And I mean that, a full court effort, a full court press over the next year to continue to do what we've done and then to do more, to protect our elections, to continue to protect people and communities.
Well, let me give you some breaking news that proves your point, that pressure matters. Pam Bondi has announced that Lindsay Halligan is out.
There you go.
Not only is the Eastern District of Virginia prosecutor, U.S. prosecutor, U.S. attorney, but out of the Department of Justice completely.
There you go.
So, I mean, does that not, let me just read it, Sky, then I'll have you react on the fly to it. Here's Pam Bondi. Of course, she doesn't lead with, she's out. During her 120-day tenure as the interim U.S. attorney for the Eastern District, Lindsay Halligan served with the utmost distinction, unwavering commitment to the rule of law. She worked tirelessly, since October, to protect the more than 6 million residents of the Eastern District. Despite multiple unnecessary legal obstacles placed in her path, she stepped forward at a critical juncture. Her departure is a significant loss for the Department of Justice. This is a person who was made a prosecutor in October for the first time in her life. It's a significant loss, apparently, to the Department of Justice. While we will feel her absence keenly, we are confident that she will continue to serve her country in other ways. That means Donald Trump's going to kick her over to some other organization that he controls. The circumstances that led to this outcome are deeply misguided, blah, blah, blah. All right, now look, with Sky on the air, it totally proves your point, does it not? That
every day. We see this every single day.
They lost twice today, as I joked with you.
They lost twice today, but it's also...
about her, I mean.
Yes, but that's also, I mean, we see this every day in all these cases. And at the same time, we have to hold that reality that pressure works.
Oh, yeah.
Courage is the new currency. You're not getting out of this moment without standing up and pushing back. But when you do, it often works. And at the same time, this is an administration that is so intent on operating with a shock and awe so that they can try to scare people so that people don't believe they have power. We have to deal with that too, right? And that's what you see with the harm and the pain that people are experiencing. But this is exactly what we've seen. And it's exactly why when people say like, well, what are y'all going to do this year? We are accelerating. We have grown our resources, grown our team. We are growing our collaboration. It's amazing how many lawyers are working together to make sure that the right cases are brought at the right time. It's not one single organization. It's not one single leader. It's not one single lawyer. And we are going to keep going and doing that because it is a core thing that has worked. Now, against that, we have to help people tune out the noise. The White House, anytime they even get half a win in any kind of court, they want to go out and do 4-hour press conferences on it because they're so desperate to try to convince people that the pushback is not working and that people don't have power. So one of the things we're very focused on at Democracy Forward this next year is making sure that people are building community, taking care of themselves, and remembering that we do still get to be in charge in this country and we do still have the power. And it's going to be harder this year because they are going to become more extreme. The president, we're 20 days into this year and we've seen like an invasion of Venezuela. It is unhinged and extreme, but we can push back. And this is a great example because they double down on Halligan over and over and over again. And the courts every time just stopped it.
My producer said this breaking news just happened. Do you want to do it after? I said, no, I got Sky on. Let's do it. I can't throw off Sky. This is a perfect segue to the point she's making. Let's do it.
Let's do it. And we're going to see more of it. I mean, we see it every day. And that's one thing I wanted to point out, because people ask me about, the appeals. And I guess we're under the White House's skin so much. It seems like they pitched a story to the New York Times recently to say, like, this district court stuff looks good, but as we go up on appeal, we're winning more. Well, that is not even based on any type of data. The administration often does not appeal or abandons their appeals in the cases where we're winning, because they actually don't like to lose. I mean,
that's not reflected in the data. Right.
Exactly. And so what you're seeing is some selection of data. And my prediction is you're going to see even that data look better over the course of this next year, because as they continue to be so unhinged, as they continue to lash out against judges and against lawyers, it is not something that these courts are going to abide. But it takes the people pushing. I mean, the courts aren't saving us, the people are. And that's what we're really keeping our minds focused on this year.
Absolutely. And just give you have lots of organizations that are under your umbrella that work with you. But if people want to learn more about Democracy Forward and they want to get involved themselves, where should they go? Go
to democracyforward.org, sign up for our newsletter. We do not spam you. People will vouch for us. We're not going to spam you. We're not going to lie to you and tell you if you rush $5, you're going to single-handedly hold up democracy. We're far beyond that. But sign up. You can learn more and be informed. We also have a lot of great opportunities to get engaged. We have a Dinners for Democracy program, Coffees for Change. Build some community with people. Get together. Don't let yourself get into despair, because we're going to have to be strong this next year. And we have all of those resources at democracyforward.org. And I will just give a shout out, because at Democracy Forward, we work in collaboration and in community with so many organizations, with the state AGs, with communities across the country. So we really want you to learn about us and support us. But if you are supporting a pro-democracy legal organization, thank you, and keep supporting whatever organization that is as well.
And thank you, Sky Perryman, for coming on our live intersection and briefing our audience. It's always a pleasure. We've got your back, because we know you've got ours. Thank you for being here with us. And we look forward to your next time with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you're here on the intersection, only on the Midas Touch Network. I'm Michael Popok. When we come back, we're going to have Lisa Phillips, who's one of the leaders of the survivor movement. And she was the first one to inform federal judge Paul Engelmeyer that the Department of Justice has effectively forfeited its right to be trusted any longer, joining together with the bipartisan congressional duo of Massey and Khanna to try to convince the judge that he should appoint a special master and provide oversight and get to the bottom of why millions of documents are still being hidden and secreted by the Trump administration. And she'll join us to brief our audience along with me on those particular issues. As people know, full disclosure, I'm representing Lisa Phillips. The Popok firm filed that declaration on her behalf, because sometimes I do the commentary and do the independent analysis, and sometimes I got to jump off the sidelines and jump into the fray along with amazing clients and courageous clients like Lisa Phillips. The intersection, it's my solo ride, I guess is the way to put it. Legal AF, Wednesdays and Saturdays. I do that, of course, with Karen Freeman Kniflo and Ben Mysalis. I co-founded that almost 6 years ago. Got the YouTube channel where you can find a dozen videos a day, amazing interviews. We've got Democracy Forward. If you like Sky Perryman, then we have a whole playlist devoted to Democracy Forward and the dozens of times they've been on to brief our audience. The American Civil Liberties Union has now joined us as well in order to provide direct information and briefing, so you can hear it right from the people that are in the courtrooms every day, along with other contributors. And we're also doing, some people might not know this, we're also doing live streaming of major events at the intersection of law and politics. For instance, just in the next 2 days, starting tomorrow at 10 a.m., actually 9:30 a.m., I'm going to be doing, along with Adam Klasfeld of All Rise News, a pregame show before the oral argument at the United States Supreme Court in the landmark issue of whether Donald Trump is going to be allowed by the MAGA 6 to take over the independence of the Federal Reserve, get his hands on interest rates, and send inflation through the roof. The Lisa Cook case is being heard tomorrow. That's must watch, must listen to YouTube. And we're doing the live stream along with our reporting at the beginning, starting at 9:30 tomorrow on the Legal AF YouTube channel. Later that day, the American Civil Liberties Union is hosting a town hall about civil rights, about civil liberties, with Minnesota at the heart of it. You're not going to want to miss that. And we're doing a simulcast live stream of the ACLU town hall also tomorrow under the live tab for the YouTube channel. On Thursday, we're going to be showing the live stream of Jack Smith. Yeah, he's back. Special counsel doing a live sworn testimony before the House Judiciary Committee, ranking member for the Democrats, Jamie Raskin. Every member, including all the Democrats, get 5 minutes with Jack Smith. Different format than the deposition that he gave back in early December. Again, we'll do a pregame show, and you're not going to want to miss it. If you want to support all the ways we've expanded for 2026 on Legal AF, we now have 2 more Legal AF branded podcasts. We've got Unprecedented, a Supreme Court show I do once a week with Dina Dahl, and Court of History, our resident historian, Sidney Blumenthal and Sean Willens. If you want to become a card-carrying member of the Legal AF community, become a subscriber or a paid subscriber, new status on Legal AF YouTube, or come over to our Substack, which now I think we're number 5 and rising in all U.S. politics on Substack. If you don't know that community, come over there, check us out. I'm doing 2 live reports every day on Legal AF Substack. We have content you're not going to find anywhere else. It's for all the Legal AF, what's the word I'm looking for? Diehards that can't get enough. Come over to the Legal AF Substack. And then supporting The Intersection, the new show here, my solo ride. We do have a sponsor, I think it's our first sponsor, so you're here for that. And now a word from our sponsor. Can we talk about Incogni and your online privacy? I used to get tons of spam calls, and my email, it was flooded with junk. The scariest of those messages were scams, and it was terrifying to see how much they knew about me. Turns out my information is spread all across the internet without me knowing. That's why I've partnered with Incogni. It helps reduce spam and take control of my online privacy by taking away my private data from shady companies. Online data breaches are relentless and rising annually. Anybody could be caught up in one. A breach of our data could put us at risk of scam attempts, identity theft, and just a general lack of privacy online. Our data can be exposed on broker databases, shady directories, search results, and even via AI. Incogni is a service that helps protect you online. It tracks down these shady sites and automatically removes your data without you even having to lift a finger. It allows you to wipe yourself from the internet completely. Incogni automatically tracks down and removes your personal data from multiple sites. It handles any objections. It continuously monitors and ensures your data stays off the market with repeated removal requests. Using the custom removals feature, your data can be removed from any site at your request. Simply send Incogni a link and your dedicated privacy expert will do the rest. I'm truly so impressed with Incogni, and I know you will be too. And best of all, you can cancel anytime, and they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can get it completely risk-free. Right now, you can get 60% off an annual plan by going to incogni.com and use code TRUTH. That's incogni.com/truth and use the code TRUTH at checkout. And we are all about the truth here on Legal AF and on the intersection. And I'm so pleased now, we get our audience back together again after our commercial break. I'm so pleased to bring on Lisa Phillips. Lisa, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. A little under the weather, but I'm good.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I know you recently celebrated a birthday. Congratulations and happy birthday. And full disclosure, Lisa, you're my client. Mm-hmm. And I represented you in a recent filing that was made in which And there's the filing. And how we got there was Judge Engelmeyer, a judge who the Trump administration and Department of Justice ran to in order to get him to, quote unquote, release the Epstein files, as if they were with him and not with the executive branch all along. To be clear to our audience, the Trump administration never needed congressional approval, never needed judicial approval. They've always been sitting on the mountain of evidence, but they've been working overtime to protect the commander-in-chief, the president of the United States. And they're conflicted as a result because he really doesn't want full disclosure. And so Engelmeyer, they ran to Engelmeyer, but they didn't like it when Congressman Massey and Khanna said, well, you're in federal court. Why don't we intervene in the case and ask for them, ask for the judge to provide oversight, since we're sitting on the same 12,000 documents for the last 6 weeks when they've already disclosed there's millions more. What's the delay? Judge, please take over. Let us file a brief to do that. And the judge came back with an order and said, I'm kind of like, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm interested to hear more about my power and authority to appoint a special master over this process. The parties are only Ghislaine Maxwell, of all people, and the U.S. I haven't heard from a victim, and I'd like to hear more. So when we saw that, you said, what did you say?
Well, I wanted to say what's important is that the federal judge didn't ask for another political argument or another DOJ explanation. He specifically asked whether a victim needed to be heard. So that's the reason why, I spoke to you about it and said, we have to do something because this matters. And up until now, survivors have been talked about. We haven't been centered. And when the federal judge opens the door and says, essentially, is there a survivor who wants to speak to how this is being handled? That's not something you ignore. This was the time to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's gotten some coverage and some press, and even Representative Khanna and Massey in their own filing today referenced your affidavit along with another survivor. One of the lawyers there wrote a letter to the judge related to it, encouraging the judge to exercise his inherent authority to take the Department of Justice out of the process, that they have effectively forfeited their right. They can't be trusted with this process. How do you feel about it? I mean, you were on we had a picture of you up there. You've been fighting hard with the other survivors on Capitol Hill, and everything that's happened is really because of your courage. The bill getting the discharge petition, getting the signatures, the almost 434 members of the House signing onto it, all of the Senate, even Donald Trump being pressured politically to sign it, is all because of you. And yet we're still sitting here 6 weeks later on the same stinking 12,000 pages. What's your view on that?
Well, the difference now is survivors live with the consequences of delay and the mishandling. This is something that we deal with. We're on group chats. We talk about this all the time. It's frustrating for us. And this isn't theoretical for us. The DOJ being late, changing its story, releasing only a fraction of the files, that causes real emotional harm and re-traumatization. And there are 1,200 survivors. People need to understand that's a very large number of victims that are dealing with this day to day, whether they're outspoken or not. And the judge needed to hear that directly, not filtered through agencies or politics.
Absolutely. And I want people to understand that this journey of yours, which I want you to talk about a bit, to go from survivor, somebody who was abused by the child sex trafficking ring and Maxwell and Epstein, to somebody who stepped forward out of the I don't want to say the shadows, you were never in the shadows, but under the shade of what had happened to you, but to step forward and be a leader in this area. Talk a little bit about your journey.
Well, my journey always started with sticking up for other survivors. I started speaking out in 2019 because of Virginia Giuffre. She came forward and started telling her story. And I remember thinking, wait a second, I can support her story because I know what she's saying is true. I mean, I just happened to be on the island when she was there with the person that she was reporting had abused her. And I had seen many things going on in the early 2000s. I was a model during that time, and Epstein had introduced me to Katie Ford at the Ford Modeling Agency, which I just thought was kind of weird at the time that they had this relationship. But come to find out just a couple years ago that there was a more nefarious relationship going on between the modeling industry, heads of these agencies, and Epstein. So it infuriated me, and I needed to know answers. And so part of this whole journey is really just finding answers. A lot of it is unknown. We can kind of connect the dots, and we still are as survivors come forward. Just now with finding out a lot of us were sent to NYU or to Columbia to get an education through a scholarship through Epstein. This is the findings that when survivors come together, we're pretty powerful because we connect the dots ourselves. So part of speaking out really was to support other survivors and, to go through the healing myself, to get answers myself, but also still to be in this fight for survivors. And as the public has seen, they want answers too. So it's not just us. I think it's a collective consciousness right now going on in the US where we all want to know what the heck is going on. And still having this foundation of knowing that there is a sex trafficking ring. So this is a human issue. It's not so much of a political issue for us.
Yeah. I mean, never in our history has a presidential administration worked so hard to cover up an international child sex trafficking ring. I mean, it's not like I can't make a comparison. It's not like, well, yeah, Garfield, oh, Hoover. I mean, this is one of one. This is Donald Trump because of his conflicts of interest and the nature of his relationship with two child sex traffickers, one convicted and one dead. And his willingness to do anything, even sacrifice his own, whatever legacy he has, of course, is lays at shreds at his feet, but he's willing to sacrifice it all in order to cover up for two child sex traffickers rather than siding with the victims. He meets with so many people in the White House, from reporters to oligarchs to bootlickers and sycophants. Has he ever invited you or any of the survivors to meet with him in the White House?
No.
You barely got an audience with some of the Republican female members of Congress, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a few of them said they would show up for us, but in the end, they ended up not.
Yeah. And so our audience is here. Several 100,000 people will watch and listen to this podcast over the course of the next day. We've got an amazing audience tonight. What is it that you want to tell them directly about how they can support your efforts and the importance of that?
Well, I believe the federal judge, the letter that we sent was to get an independent monitor. And I believe the federal judge is listening to us. This is the time he's finally saying, wait a second, I want to hear from the victims. And the judge is being asked to decide whether the Department of Justice can be trusted to oversee itself here. And the record says it can't. And there are millions of documents. We are months behind the legal deadline. And that's infuriating for us because we fought so hard to get that, and we're not getting anything. We're getting like bits and pieces and confusion, and it's pissing people off. The victims' names have already been mishandled as well. Why are you redacting the powerful men? Sorry, why are you redacting the victims and not the powerful men? And I don't get it. Like, the victims' names have been out there. Why would you do that to them? So it's almost like they're poking at you a little bit and playing with us. And it's so important that an independent monitor or a special master, it is an extreme. It's an oversight and it's accountability. It just needs to happen. So this is really important for all of us survivors to get some sort of person that oversees everything, so the victims' names aren't out there and the actual perpetrators' names are.
Yeah, we had it on the Midas Touch Network and Legal AF about 3 weeks ago. They had a document where They redacted the name of some DOJ contractor. Like, is he involved in the sex trafficking ring? Is he the victim? Why is he, why we should know who that person is? That's the point of full transparency, which of course is not the goal of this administration. The goal of this administration is when bad things happen, make them happen slower, and you're watching it in full view. Now, from an Epstein survivor, and working not just on Capitol Hill, you've been working around the country to help get laws passed to help adult and other survivors be able to bring civil lawsuits, like in California, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about your work.
Act, it's opening up, and it just opened up in January again. It opened up in 2019, and it opened up again so that victims can go back 5 years, 50 years, and go after their abuser.
Yeah.
This is so important. This is so important because so many victims, they live with this shame and this heartache of not getting justice for so long, that this gives them a window to go back and feel like they have some power over their own agency again.
And the way you've been mistreated and victimized again by the Trump administration, insulted, as you said, or suggested, been trolled by them, which is not the right place to be. You're supposed to be on the right side of the angels when you're dealing with these kind of issues. Has this sort of lit a fuse for you in terms of what in the future? Let's say we get all the Epstein files out and that finally is accomplished. What's the kind of the next chapter or the continuation chapter for you, for Lisa Phillips? Because people now know about you. They want to follow you and support you. And what are you doing next?
Well, I'll always be fighting for survivors' rights. That's the most important thing for me. I also have a podcast working on season 2 to get that picked up by a network. We're in talks right now. And for me, that's just the biggest move, just to be able to have survivor voices be heard and be seen and be validated. And we'll also speak to people like you and experts and people that are shifting the narrative and making big changes in this world. I really believe that people need to understand what's going on when it comes to sexual abuse in our society.
Yeah, one of the things that you were instrumental in helping to break a week or so ago, and we covered it with a good interview between that we had on Legal AF, was this linkage between major universities, Jeffrey Epstein, and the survivors, where they were being used to coerce survivors to stay within the predatory lair of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. The big carrot was, I'll pay for NYU. I'll get you into Columbia. I'll pay your tuition. And then even according to the Wall Street Journal and some investigation on at the House side, money being money laundered through these universities by Epstein, overpaying them for tuition so that the victims could get cash, that it wouldn't show up on, direct payments from him. So in other words, money laundering through major universities. I don't know if you saw today, Goldman Sachs has a problem. Its general counsel apparently was very close with Jeffrey Epstein and either represented him. It was in his will as an executor. She's the general counsel of Goldman Sachs, the leading financial services entity or firm in the world, probably. And she's tainted with the Jeffrey Epstein part. So talk a little bit about, as we end here, talk about the NYU major university thing for those that might have missed the story, and which has now opened up an entire new follow the money aspect of the Epstein child sex trafficking ring.
Well, when I spoke out on Capitol Hill, it was really to speak out to survivors to come forward. And that's what they did. And, I just wanted to inspire and empower women out there to not hold on to their shame. And, we were young when this happened. We didn't know. And learning about grooming and coercion is really important. That's why I started the podcast to begin with, was just to understand how victims get pulled into this lair. And I didn't understand why back then Jeffrey had offered me to go to NYU. I mean, obviously I thought it was because I was an actress and Tisch is a great program, but I always wondered why he was pushing that. After NYU had already told me that I couldn't go. They said, you're already doing TV commercials. You can't be a working actress if you're going to be in this program. But he said, oh, don't worry, I'll make a phone call. And I ended up not going with that program, but it always stuck in my mind. And I had a girlfriend at the time who I would notice, like, you're going to NYU on Jeffrey's paying for it. Like, I couldn't understand. I mean, obviously now I understand what was going on with her, but she was so quiet and shameful about it. She wouldn't speak up to me about it or anyone during those years. I mean, it's 20 something years ago. And so now it's like, okay, that's what was going on. And other women came forward after I spoke out in November and said, you know what? I also was sent to NYU by Jeffrey Epstein. I was sent to Columbia. I was sent to this art school. He was paying for it. And we all said, well, why was he paying for it? Why? To keep us in his network. So if you're paying for a school, obviously you have to go to school for at least 2 to 4 years. So he keeps you in that network. And then even more, a lot of people don't want to think like this, but a lot of times he's grooming these women to become more educated and more ready for society so that he can introduce you to these men in the network. A lot of these women became the wives of very powerful men. And I know there is some talk about how Melania, met Epstein on the island. I don't know if that's a fact or not, but this is the type of thing that Jeffrey was doing, introducing beautiful, young, ambitious women, educating them, getting the visas to work in the United States, and teaching them about society, introducing them to these men who were later trafficked. And you're wondering, oh, well, wonder why they're all hitting on me. Well, now we know why. So it was just this confusion around so many hundreds of women during that time, but nobody really understood what was going on until now. And we're still peeling that onion right now. To this day, still finding out more of what's really going on. So for me, the main thing, releasing these files, is just to really understand what is going on with our government and why it's been protected for so many years. And we're seeing with our current president, why is he hiding all this information? We as the American people, not just the survivors, need to understand what is going on, and we need answers. And this is the only way to do it, with you sending the letter to the judge and just seeing what we can do, just trying as hard as we can, because we're up against very powerful people, and we know that. Yeah. But we're gonna keep trying, right?
Yeah, and we're certainly honored. I'm certainly honored personally to be shoulder to shoulder with you, to back you, have your back, and to and support the survivors of sex abuse. And certainly, we're going to continue to train our sites and our artillery and bring our resources, which include this platform, our audience. We all vibrate on the same frequency when it comes to making sure that you have and your fellow survivors and victims have the dignity and justice that you deserve. And I'm just so pleased that we have this relationship and moving forward into 2026. In fact, I'm coming out to California in February. I know that we're going to get together and talk about different collaborative ways that we can all work together using our respective platforms on behalf of survivors. So Lisa Phillips, it's such a pleasure to have you as here on The Intersection, addressing and briefing our audience. And thank you for doing it.
Thank you, Michael. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, you too. Lisa Phillips, one of the leaders of the survivor movement, who's in court right now, trying to convince a federal judge that the Department of Justice has forfeited its right to continue to sit on millions of pages of documents about and to protect the rich and the powerful. And we'll continue to report on that particular important matter. We're not going to lose sight of it. It's not going to go away, as I know the Trump administration would like it to, and not when Legal AF and Intersection and the Midas Touch are here. Let me thank the audience. We've had two major guests here. We had Skye Perryman, the head of Democracy Forward, briefing our audience, including right up to the minute. And we had the announcement, for those that joined a little bit late, had the announcement that Lindsay Halligan is out of the Department of Justice, out of the U.S. Attorney position in the Eastern District of Virginia. Pressure worked. Public pressure worked. Crowds and courage worked. Our continued coverage out of it. I had 4 different videos today up on either Midas or Legal AF, drilling down on 2 new orders that came out today, this morning, to strip Lindsay Halligan of her title. One, Judge Novak threatening her with disciplinary sanctions, and Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche and anybody else who signed another pleading with her name on it as the U.S. attorney. and also walking through how inappropriate and how much ridiculous vitriol that the Department of Justice was aiming at a federal judge, and he wasn't having anything of it. That blistering, I said it during a video I did this morning about it. I needed like asbestos gloves to hold it. It was so hot. That and the chief judge advertising the vacancy and all of the public pressure. I'm not taking responsibility. It's like the hummingbird theory, right? All the hummingbirds batting their wings and Lindsay Halligan's out. And that's a good thing. Let me wrap up by just touching on global AF for a minute, which is what we call it around the house, around the YouTube channel, when we talk about global things. And we have to talk about global things at the intersection of law and politics because we have to meet the moment as Donald Trump goes after our allies as if they are our enemies, and they have to react in kind. So let's just do a quick around the world in Donald Trump time. Okay. Davos, Switzerland is where the World Economic Forum is held. It's hosted this year by the leader of BlackRock, private equity fund in New York. Of course, they wanted Donald Trump there. Donald Trump decided he wanted to make Davos his coronation platform in order to get a whole bunch of things written down and signed. Greenland, I want all of NATO to cave to my will, bend to my will, and give me Greenland. And then I want the signatures and the $1 billion for everybody who wants to be on the peace board. Peace board seats for sale, everybody. Peace board seats. You're a dictator. You're at war. You're currently killing innocents. You can be on the peace board, Mr. Putin. And you can bring people like Lukashenko and other dictators along with you. Sure, I'll let some of the allies on. And where does all the money go when you read the fine print related to the Gaza peace board? It goes to Donald Trump. Of course, it goes to Donald Trump. And that's why countries like Canada, led by real leaders like Mark Carney, are saying, yeah, we're not doing that. And Donald Trump made Donald Trump made a major mistake. He went to Davos late. Right? He figured he'd come in when the party was already in progress, do a crazy press conference that I covered at the top of the show, and then he'll show up, right, with all his regalness, with Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, and Marco Rubio, and the Trade Representative, and F that, because that just galvanized all of the European leaders, real leaders, who got together. Macron, the president of I don't know if we have a picture of it, the president of France, he was wearing like Joe Biden, dark Biden glasses. I don't know if it was sunny in the room. I guess Switzerland, maybe. It basically said, we're not going back to imperialism. We're not going back to colonialism. He has an eye. Oh, my producer said, no, he's got an eye problem. I don't know. It looked badass to me. You're wearing those aviators with mirrored lenses. Look badass. I'd go up there like that too, if I could. So I have badass glasses, as people know. So he said, we're not going back to imperialism. We're not going back to colonialism. Mark Carney said, we're not doing this. The head of the EU, same thing, speech after speech after speech to deny Donald Trump. He can create all the AI cartoons he wants. He can put the flag up his backside if he wants, but he's not getting Greenland or NATO. And even Republicans believe that's a bad idea and bad policy and bad politics. And so they're fighting back. As we're not going to have a live stream of this because there is no live stream, but there is. The EU is getting together, European Union, in Brussels on Thursday to talk about retaliatory measures and pushing the doomsday button. They have a doomsday button. Yep. Big. It's like on James Bond movies. Giant button marked doomsday. It's the anti-coercion instrument, the ACI. It's filled with retaliatory tariffs to fight back at Donald Trump. And Donald Trump doesn't like it. Doesn't like that he's being opposed in Greenland. So he threatened Macron and French wines with a 200% tariff, giving yet another example as to why the Supreme Court needs to rip away and take this toy out of this toddler's hands once and for all about tariffs. He doesn't have the tariff power, And so he's just giving Exhibit A through Z of why even the MAGA 6 on the Supreme Court need to shut him down. Now, we didn't get the tariff order today. We're not going to get it for a while. I've said it's not, major decisions don't get made until March, April, May, or June. That's just the way it is. And so I think it's going to be a bad decision. Some people in the chat said maybe they're timing it. Yeah, I don't put it past the Supreme Court MAGA 6 to time it. Of course, the moderates could do the same thing on when they finish their dissents and their concurrences. Nope, not quite done yet. Whole thing's got to go out at the same time. That's why we haven't gotten the Voting Rights Act decision yet. So the world, Donald Trump is a unifier. Donald Trump is a unifier. He's unifying the world against America. Yeah, we're going to be America first, and they're going to be America last. And at the rate they're going, it's gotten so bad that when Mark Carney of Canada cuts a great deal with China because he's been left with no choice, Donald Trump says, yeah, that's a good idea. I would cut a deal with China if I were Mark Carney too. Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, reshaping the world order against America's interests doesn't seem to be in America's interests. And when you combine that with the failed Trumponomics, and I'll tell you where it's all coming to a head, this sort of split screen between America's suffering and the hermetically sealed world of the government, including the legislative branch, including the Supreme Court, who lives in the most ivy tower of ivy towers, hermetically sealed, is going to come out tomorrow. And you'll need to watch it with us over on Legal AF YouTube, which is going to be starting at 9:30. It's the oral argument about whether Donald Trump gets to take over the Federal Reserve. A Federal Reserve that this Supreme Court, even the MAGA 6 said, nah, you've gone too far. That's like our historic first and second banks of America. They're independent. No, you can't fire everybody there. Finally telling the toddler, no, you can't eat that now. You need to go to bed. So we're going to see what's going to happen during the oral argument. We're going to know right away, based on their prior rulings, whether they're going to let Donald Trump get his greedy, grubby, sticky little hands on the monetary policy along with fiscal policy. Fiscal policy being what the president and the administration handles, monetary policy being what's in the hands of the independent Federal Reserve. And guess who's showing up tomorrow besides me? Jay Powell. Oh, yes. Donald Trump said he was going to go to the tariff hearing, oral argument, and didn't show up. Kind of like when he said he was going to go down to the Capitol during Jan 6 and found a way to hightail it back to the White House dining room. But you know who is showing up tomorrow? Jay Powell. Sure, they left him out at Davos, where all the other central bankers hang out. We got Donald Trump instead going to the World Economic Conference. So he had some time on his hands. The reconstruction of the Federal Reserve well underway. Doesn't have to worry about Donald Trump up his ass. So he's taking a little bit of a breather and strolling over to the United States Supreme Court to show to the Supreme Court, they're going to have to acknowledge that effing Fed Reserve Chair Jay Powell is in the room, because the independence of the Federal Reserve is so important, not to his pension, not to him personally, but to the American people, to our economy, to our way of life. Without an independent Federal Reserve, the United States would no longer be considered the gold standard for financial services, for the economy in the world. That's just, it would not be. And so he wants to send the message by his appearance. Sort of like, like when people know I like The Godfather. Like in The Godfather 2, when they brought, Frankie Pantangeli's brother over from the old country to have him sit in the Senate room while his brother was about to testify against Michael Corleone, just to have him in the room. So think of Jay Powell like Frank Pantangeli's brother. How's that? That was sorry about that, folks. I just got carried away with my metaphors. Anyway, that's where we are. I'm glad you're here. For those that just wandered in late thinking this was some sort of movie clip show, this is The Intersection with Michael Popok. I'm so pleased that you're here. We had an amazing crowd with us. We had about 6,000 or 7,000 at the height. Two great guests in Sky Perryman, Democracy Forward, and Lisa Phillips, a leader of the Survivor movement, all coming together to connect the dots for you the only way we know how, without blowing smoke or sunshine. Take a moment, go over wherever you get your audio podcast from, go plug in The Intersection, leave a 5-star review, We've only been up about 2 weeks. You'll see your review. I mean, it's we're that new up on audio. Leave a 5-star review. Leave a comment. I read all the comments. And it helps me. It helps me there. And then, of course, the other way to support everything that we do is to come over to Legal AF, the YouTube channel, where I'm the head curator. We just crossed 1 million subscribers. Think about becoming a paid member. If you want to, like people say, how do we invest in Legal AF? Keep independent journalism independent. That's a way. That is a way. There's me. I think it was 10 pounds heavier with I needed a haircut. Let's go over to Legal AF Substack, another way to support everything that we do. This is where I live. I do 40 videos a week. I do the podcast. I'm running the Legal AF Substack. I'm running the YouTube channel. And if you enjoy it, if you want to support it, if you want to give a thumbs up to it, these are the different ways to support what we do. But I appreciate each and every one of you for coming out to the intersection on Tuesday nights here on the Midas Touch Network. And so until my next contribution to all things law and politics, shout out to the Midas Mighty and the Legal AFers. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.